many adults are bad with money, and there's a number of factors why. So I'm not sure if I'm going to remember to mention all the different factors, but you have the fact that financial education, a proper financial education, even the basics, is not taught at any level of government school. You have bad parenting, which I've talked about for a long time. Just kids, including myself, have not learned a lot of the basic lessons in life that they should have learned, so they were well-adjusted, well-functioning adults. And, learning about money, learning about budgeting, learning the importance of saving, and then also fiat currencies, where you have fiat currencies that are being intentionally rapidly devalued now by all these governments. They're talking about cashless society. They're talking about government cryptocurrencies like the crypto yuan and others. And this is not going to make it any easier to save. On top of this, you have stagflate and tax and lie, which is causing people's cost of living to rise. If you look at the Chapwood Inflation Index, it is between 8% per year, the real inflation rate for cost of living, and 13% per year, depending upon which major American metro area or city you live in. And that type of increases in cost of living to maintain the same standard of living is very difficult because most people's incomes are not rising. Most people's incomes, if you look at the government data says most people's incomes in real terms, accounting for the official government inflation rate, have been stagnant for decades. Now, I've talked about the importance of budgeting, how people can save outside of fiat currencies if you have some cash maybe for opportunities in case there's a stock market crash or an oil market crash. If there's an oil market crash and everything goes bankrupt or everything drops 50%, there might want some cash. Though there might be an amazing buying opportunity with blood in the streets. By the way, I've been doing research before I finish the rest of this live stream show. Been doing more research. I think I will have a audio podcast out for my Patreon account contributors about more details about some oil market ideas in the next day or two. Found a couple interesting websites with some good research on there. Anyways, with rising costs, maintaining one's standard of living is becoming more and more difficult nowadays with stagflate and tax and lie, because their taxes in many cases are going up, property taxes, sales tax, all these different types of taxes. Seems like there's new taxes being created all the time, and that the existing taxes are being increased. And obviously the government inflation data is not accurate. So that brings us to the story here on your screen. Nearly 1 in 3, and this jives with some of the other survey data we've seen with 41% of adult Americans don't even have $1,000 in their checking or savings account for an emergency. But this one talks about how even people who are earning a high salary, and a lot of those people are probably earning that high salary of $100,000 or more in major metro areas. So their cost of living is going to be a lot higher. And then there's other factors too that I'll talk about in a little bit. It'll touch a little bit on the sugar daddy, sugar baby stuff, but I'm not going to go into crazy details here because then this will get demonetized and it'll bring the wrong crowd over for bad attention. Just stuff I don't want to talk about. So, well, without risking my channel getting in any more trouble with Google and YouTube. So let me talk about this article. It came out last week by Megan Leonhardt. Nearly 1 in 3 American workers ran out of money before payday, even those earning over $100,000. And yes, $100,000 seems like a lot, but if you live in the Washington, D.C. metro area, or you live in New York City, or you live in the San Francisco or San Jose metro area, that money can go away quick with taxes and rent and healthcare if your employer's not covering most of your healthcare or all of your healthcare, and then your food bill, and all the student loan debt, credit, car loan. I'll do another show on car loans. There's some interesting car loan stories that are coming out. Some crazy ones, really crazy car loan stuff that's come out in the last week or two. Do another show on that in the next week or so. Hopefully next few days, but maybe the next week. We'll see. So all these bills add up. And at the end of the day, by the time you're paying bills, you don't have a lot of money saved up. So this is why, and I've talked about this in previous shows months ago, why budgeting is important. The average adult doesn't do budgeting, wasn't taught how to do budgeting in schools, wasn't taught how to do budgeting by their parents, and this is what gets them into trouble. And this is why someone who's earning over $100,000 a year runs out of money each month. So let me finish the article now. Going extra light at the grocery store, cutting down on medical supplies, buying clothing and household supplies secondhand. These are just some of the many ways many Americans are making it work when money is tight. For about a third of Americans, this is a regular financial stress, with 32% running out of money before their next paycheck hits. According to a new survey fielded by Salary Finance of over 2,700 U.S. adults working at companies with over 500 employees, Amy, who is 36 years old, is intimately familiar with running short on cash and using these workarounds, especially during tax season. That's in spite of the fact that she and her husband make about $50,000 a year, just short of the average household income in the U.S. Tax time hurts for us because we don't get a refund, we get a bill. She tells CNBC Make It, the show. Her husband, the primary earner, works for a company in a different state, so state income taxes aren't taken out, she says. While they typically get a federal refund, they end up owing the state more than the federal refund. Salary Finance compared the percent of working Americans who said they run out of money before payday most of the time or always among different income levels. Quote, we never have a lot, but spring, summer, and fall, we can usually get what we want at the grocery store, Amy says. The hard times start pretty much as soon as winter hits because the heating bill goes up and she and her husband know tax time is coming soon. It's back to cutting corners at the grocery store or hitting up the fresh food giveaways that occur in their region of central New York. This year, they've opted to also cut down on some of her husband's CPAP machine. I guess he has sleep apnea or narcolepsy. CPAP machine supplies in an effort to... That's not a good idea to cut down on this stuff. In an effort to find ways to save. Quote, we've been fortunate to not have many unexpected bills pop up over the past couple years, so we've been able to hold fairly steady lately, but it's scary, of course, she adds, saying that she's fearful they'll need a new roof soon, a huge expense. We're okay, but we're also just one bad day away, or one emergency, let me add that, one emergency away, like their car, having a problem with their car, or an emergency medical bill, or a problem with their house, from things turning horrible. Living paycheck to paycheck affects all income levels. And this is something I touched on earlier because of the factors with fiat currency, stagflation, tax and lie, people not being taught proper lessons about budgeting and saving from their parents or government schools with even a basic financial education class, personal finance class. Contrary to popular belief, this is not just an issue for people at the lower end of the income spectrum. Dan Macklin, Salary Finance's U.S. CEO and co-founder of SoFi, tells CNBC Make It about 31% of respondents in their survey earning over $100,000 also regularly experience a budget shortfall before payday. For many, it's the rising cost of living, including food, housing, education, and medical expenses, that creates the squeeze. Let me also add that a lot of this, too, if you're a single man and you're making that type of money and you're dating, and I'm using air quotes, dating, in one of these major metro areas, you're paying through the nose. Oh my God, you're paying through the nose. Just yesterday, I matched with a girl, and in the first 10 minutes, it was this hot cougar. I guess she was divorced around here. And in the first 10 minutes, I wasn't even talking anything about how much money I make or anything. She was trying to hustle me into buying her box seats at the opera. And I don't even like the opera. I've never been to an opera. I really don't want to sit around for 3 hours. So, I mean, the amount of stuff that some of these women are asking for dating is just ridiculous. I've met some men out there in Clarendon who, in lines at bars, and they were, complaining to their buddies in lines at bars about their girlfriends, and I'll use air quote girlfriend, because they were paying their food bill, a monthly food bill or rent for them to be their girlfriend, in addition to alcohol bills and traveling and other entertainment stuff. So the credit card, there's a number of articles that I'll put in the information and description section, and a lot of these look at how much breakdown between credit card spending between men and women over the last 5 years. These different articles that have come out in personal finance websites. And unfortunately, and this is predictable, a lot of these articles tend to call men stupid for spending way too much money on entertainment and alcohol. But the truth is that a lot of these men who are spending way more money than women on eating out and entertainment and alcohol, they're spending money to date. To attempt to get laid. So finally, I found an article out of the 5 or 6 that I looked up that actually said something like this. The rest of them were pretty much just making fun of men. Kind of ridiculous. But, this is the world that we live in here in the West. But women do spend a lot of money on beauty products and some other expenses that are very, very high. But men blow a ton extra on food, entertainment, and also alcohol, because they buy girls' drinks. Okay, back to this article. So that's what I've touched on. I'm not going to give a whole bunch of stories and do the full sugar daddy, sugar baby episode. Touched on it a little bit. I mean, there's been some crazy stuff, whether it's girls asking for like a Michelin star restaurant for a first date, or there was oh my god, there was the plus size model who offered to who was trying to negotiate with me to pay for her trip to Europe, and I obviously said no thank you. Okay, back to the article. For many, it's the rising cost of living, food, housing, education, medical expenses that creates the squeeze. Over the past year, basic costs increased by 2.3%, according to the bullshit Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index. The cost of medical care rose 4.6% in 2019. I don't believe those numbers. Medical bills, from the people I speak to on this podcast and others, people run their own business, their health insurance premiums for their family and for their business that they're covering for the employees are going nuts. It's not 4.6% rose in 2019. That is total BS. That's like cutting it down by like 70 or 80% on the increase. The largest year-over-year increase since 2007, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports. Housing also jumped 3.2% last year. I've spoken to people anecdotally. I have a podcast listener who told me, who was living in San Diego, that his rent in the last 10 or 12 years has doubled. So I think his rent was like a little over $1,000 in San Diego, and now it's over $2,000. So I'm sure there's other stories like that. Rent is up significantly in many major metro areas. A lot of it's because of Chinese money buying real estate. Empty houses. Or they put like a graduate student son or daughter there. Okay, housing also jumped 3.2% last year, while education expenses rose 2.1%. Also, if someone's doing a rental property income and they have more mortgage payments and they have higher property taxes, they have to pass that on to their tenant. So that's also why rents are going up. Education expenses rose 2.1%. Food prices increased about 1.8%. I'm just reading the article. I honestly don't believe any of those numbers. For others, it's stagnant wages. Real wages effectively remained stalled last year, showing only a 0.2% year-over-year increase. Now, President Trump has touted that some wages have gone up, and some of them have gone up. And some people did benefit from the Trump tax cuts, but not everyone. But the truth is that most people will not be able to grow their incomes, their revenues faster than their cost of living is rising, and so their standard of living will decline. Now, I've talked about the ways that people can hustle. They need to be entrepreneurial, maybe a side hustle, a side business. There's a lot of different websites and books out about this for entrepreneurship, and that's how you're going to be able to grow your income on the side, because most people are not going to be able to go to their boss and ask for a raise. Okay, back to the article. Looking longer term, PayScale found median wages, when adjusted for inflation, actually declined 9% since 2006. That's interesting. No matter the underlying reason, and that's with a low inflation assumption. So with a low inflation assumption, wages actually fell 9% since 2006. And they've not risen in when accounted for inflation since the 70s for many people. I think that's the statistic that many people use. Salary Finance compared the percentage of respondents who say they have money worries among different income levels. No matter the underlying reason, the struggle to pay bills and put food on the table when you're short on cash leads to a lot of stress. The survey finds financial stress is very prevalent today, with 42% of working Americans experiencing it. It's a percentage that Macklin finds extremely worrying. That's because that financial stress can have lasting effects on your mental and physical health, he says. Those with financial worries are 6 times more likely to suffer from anxiety and 7 times more prone to depression. Salary Finance's survey found. Build up a savings cushion. In order to shield your future from financial threats, Tom Butch, managing director of retail distribution at the brokerage company TD Ameritrade, recently recommended Americans develop a comprehensive financial plan plan and build an emergency savings fund of 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Okay, time for a water break. Setting up regular automatic transfers from your checking account to a savings account, which will pay you nothing if you use a regular savings account. You can save in precious metals. You can save maybe a little bit in cryptocurrencies. Saving in fiat currency, no one's going to give you any interest rates, with central bankers forcing interest rates down. Just wait till the Fed puts even worse financial repression in place. There's still a lot of government economists that want negative interest rates here in the U.S., and they're claiming here in the article, this is old personal finance. This is a cliche that a savings account over time will help grow your emergency fund. It's just not true anymore. You're not getting any interest in savings, or you're not getting any interest in any of those accounts really. If you're tight, and you're certainly not getting any interest above the real inflation rate. If you're tight on money at the moment, start small with just $5 a day or $5 a week. So cutting expenses is good, but if you pinch every single penny, especially if you're living with someone in your family, they're going to hate you. So if all you do is pinch pennies and you don't focus on growing revenues, and you try to cut your standard of living a lot, it's not going to end well for the person you're living with, your husband, your wife, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. Maybe you're a throuple. Maybe you're in a polyamorous thing. I don't know. Or your family unit. But if you drastically cut expenses and you pinch every penny, and their standard of living, the person that you're living with or the family that you're living with, standard of living drops, it's gonna end ugly. They're not gonna like you very much. Focus on growing revenues. The personal finance people don't talk about that. They just talk about cutting costs, grow revenues, be entrepreneurial, hustle, do something like me. I mean, not everyone can do a podcast and get the YouTube channel that I have, but everyone is good at something. Everyone can have a skill that they can maybe do a little side business. If you can cook, maybe do a little catering business on the weekend or something like that. And maybe that catering business starts into a food truck. I don't know. There's a ton of different examples. You don't need to have all the money right away to start your own business. You can do it in steps. And that's what Carol Roth talks about in her entrepreneur book. That's my favorite entrepreneur book, because it's not all unicorns and rainbows. Okay, that may be easier said than done for those who are routinely running short on cash. Almost half of working Americans surveyed by Salary Finance, or 48%, say they don't have any money specifically set aside for emergencies. That's not very smart. Even if you're a high-income employee, you don't have any money for emergencies, so that assumes you're going to stay perfectly healthy, you're going to be a working machine or robot, and you're going to continue this in perpetuity. Oh my God. It's just the stupidity, the lack of financial education. Common sense. It's common sense, but we weren't taught common sense, or it was bred out of us. It's just ridiculous. And then you have these stupid personal finance articles that are saying that millennials my age, like someone aged 24 to 32, has $11,000 or more average in savings. I don't believe that. And then there's these other articles that are even more unbelievable, even more hyperbolic than that, claiming that, 25% of millennials have $100,000 or more in savings? Some ridiculous amount. I know a lot of high-income salary people in this area. There are a lot of overpaid government employees, a lot of overpaid military contractors, a lot of consultants working at private companies that work crazy amounts of hours. We're talking they get up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. They're on conference calls to India to do tons and tons of work. They're working over 80 hours a week. They're flying like crazy. Some of them are flying 3 or 4 days a week. Okay, they're getting ground into the ground. The burnout rate for some of these consulting agencies at like Booz Allen Hamilton and Accenture and some of these other, the burnout rate is unbelievable. Most people don't get out of the first year or two. So they're earning their paycheck, but they're getting killed for it. Their body is getting killed. I've met some of these people. I've dated a few of them, and it's some of these girls. It's crazy. So they're earning their paycheck, but it's not sustainable for them to work those hours for 10, 20, 30 years. Their body's not going to take it. Well, their health is definitely not going to take it. Their body may kind of take it. but they're not going to stay in the same. Their health is going to deteriorate. Their relationships are going to be a mess. They're not going to be happy, even if they're pulling in over $100,000 a year. So back to the article and rant. Having a source of savings can not only save you from getting into high-interest credit card debt or other high-cost loans, it can help your mindset. Those who consistently save experience less financial stress, according to the survey. Many times, finding ways to save money from your monthly budget comes down to planning in advance. Trying to save up a few $1,000s on the fly can seem daunting, but finding small ways to save over time can be easier. In Amy's case, all of her cost cutting during the months leading up to tax season is saved up and then used to help keep the couple out of debt when covering their state income taxes. Quote, at least we know it's coming and are able to cover it with planning, Amy says. Okay, so I think that's it for the article. But I have these other surveys up about credit card spending differential between different age demographics, men and women. If you want to read more about those, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 of those. Wayne says, fun fact, of people who eventually become millionaires, only 1% become millionaires before age 40. Yep, that is correct. There were those personal finance books. So I've read Richest Man in Babylon. That's my favorite personal finance book. It's really good. It uses like fables to teach personal finance. It's a really good basic beginner's personal finance book, Richest Man in Babylon. But there's the Millionaire Next Door books. Those Millionaire Next Door books are very interesting too. So they teach about saving, frugality. A lot of rich people live below their means. A lot of rich people buy used cars, so their car doesn't depreciate if they buy a new car. They're already buying a car that's depreciated. So they might buy a slightly used car. For now, it's monetized because, thank you, Coach Alpha Elite, just after a 5-second ad to my stream. Hope it's monetized. Yes, for now it is monetized, as long as I do not say the Cerveza problem. The real name for the Cerveza problem. Stop spending and save. What is there to teach? But the problem is a lot of these people are graduating college with mountains of student loan debt, and then they want to live on their own. They want to get rent. They want to live with roommates or live on their own. So rent is very high. Then they have their car payment. They have their credit card bills. They have their medical bills. They have entertainment, travel. If they're a single guy, they're spending big coin. To date here is thousands of dollars a month. Actually, for some first dates, I mean, the minimum bill's like $1,000. Some of these girls, oh boy, it's $1,000 or more for some of these girls. And no, I'm not talking supermodel quality. Those ones want even more than that. The 8s, 9s, and 10s. Maybe this area is just bad compared to other areas. I don't really know because I haven't dated in those other areas. This area's changed a lot in 10 years. I used to go on dates with Democrat girls. They didn't care about my politics when I was in college and after I graduated college. That was a little over 10 years ago. They didn't care. Okay, I'm looking at listener questions and comments here. I'll scroll down and answer a couple. Mark says, young kids have too much trust in government. I agree. They also have too much trust in socialism. They believe Bernie Sanders. They believe that Bernie Sanders is actually going to do what he says. And if Bernie Sanders does do what he says, then everyone's going to end up even more poor. They have too much trust in their college professor who tells them that socialism was never done, that it was never real socialism that was done. Venezuela doesn't count. Soviet Union doesn't count. Mao's China doesn't count. Carlos says, why save when Bernie Sanders will save the day? Yep, I think a lot of people believe that. A lot of people have maxed out their student loans, they're maxing out their credit cards, and they're betting that Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or one of these politicians is going to bail them out. Meanwhile, the people who did the right thing, people like me who are busting their butt to pay their bills, paying off student loan debt, paying off credit cards, working their butt off, we're going to be SOL, shit out of luck. Carlos says, here in Los Angeles, a studio costs $2,500 a month. It's about the same in Washington, D.C. In the D.C. metro area. Rent is up a lot here. What they're doing, what I've heard they're doing now in Washington, D.C. is some old houses with like basements. They're putting curtains in the basement and they're putting cots down there. So you have like a curtained off cot and like a couple, they put like a dresser drawer in there. And I think those people are paying like $1,000 a month. I think they've divided that up. So I think some of those people are paying around $1,000 a month before like utilities and cable and internet share and stuff like that. It's pretty ridiculous. There's a lot of actually girls here. My best friend is a very successful real estate agent, but he has done rentals in the past, and there's a lot of girls whose parents sign the cosign for rent. So he said that's not the case with boys, but there's a lot of girls who actually have pretty high salaries, and the parents are still paying their rent. CBZ asks, wouldn't a recession help improve people's discipline? Not everyone. The Keynesians don't want it anyway. So Keynesian, again, I forgot to add this point. This goes back to Austrian school economics versus Keynesian economics. The Keynesians don't want saving. Now I just remembered that I was going to pull up this one article. I wanted to read part of it on how ridiculous mainstream finance is, mainstream personal finance, and Keynesian economics is. Let me see if I can find it. It's in the Wall Street for Main Street Facebook group. Give me a second. If the beeps and buzzes go off, that's because I opened up Facebook temporarily to pull this article out. Let me see if I can get it real quick without getting beeped and buzzed. Here we go. Okay, this article is from the New York Times from today. Gianna Smialek, how millennials can make the Fed's job harder. Oh man, this is some of the stuff in this article is truly hilarious. Truly hilarious. Quote, they say millennials are lazy. Billboards plastered across 15 major cities declared last summer, retire early and prove them right. That sentiment, reflected in ads for the investment manager Prudential, is the stuff of a 30-year-old's fantasy and the Federal Reserve's nightmare. A young generation of aggressive savers could lead central bankers with less room to cut interest rates, which they have long done to boost growth in times of economic trouble. I don't really know that many people, young people, who have a lot of savings. I know a lot of young people who have high-paying jobs, but they also have very high expenses. They have high levels of student loan debt. They have their car payment. They have credit card bills. If they're single and they're attempting to date, then they're really screwed around here. Their expenses are going up like enormously if they're trying to date around here. I mean, the minimum cost for dating around here is unbelievable. And normally there's a lot of negotiation involved by the girls. The girls are negotiating right up front. Trying to find suckers, trying to hustle you out of $500, $1,000 trips, $500 dinners, $1,000 trips, $2,000. It's really ridiculous. One girl even, and I don't know if this was a scam or not, but she took a screenshot claiming that she had a medical bill for like $2,500, and I was like, no way, you're real. I'm not paying that. Anyway, okay, back to the article. Leave the workforce early. Millennials would need to build up massive retirement funds and consume less in the process. That hit to demand could slow growth and force rates to drop even lower to entice spending. The truth is, a lot of the younger kids in college and who just graduated college can't afford to buy a car. Okay, they're not going to be able to buy a house. Who's going to be able to buy the assets when the baby boomers need to sell? Is it going to be the central banks? Is it going to be hedge funds with cheap money from the Fed? Probably not going to be my generation or younger, though, even if asset prices collapse. And if asset prices collapsed, then the baby boomers are really screwed. The ones who are either close to retirement or retired now or about to retire, then they're really screwed if asset prices got a 50% or more haircut for a while. Which is why I don't think the central bankers, among one of the main reasons besides tax revenues, don't want the asset prices to fall. Okay, today's workers manage to retire young, exacerbate situation, shrinking the labor force, further weighing in the economy's potential. Millennials, who are roughly between ages 24 to 39, have not lived through pronounced price spikes. This is incorrect because people's real bills are going up like crazy. My food bill's up enormously. Portion sizes are down a lot. Hello, shrinkflation. Already have the lowest inflation expectations of any adult generation. I mean, the fallacies of the mainstream finance and Keynesian economics in this article, you really have to, I dare you, and this is a dare. I dare you to read this article and read it with a straight face. Okay, so I dare you to read this article, finish it, and not be laughing by the time this article is over. I'm going to skip to the funniest part here because it quotes our favorite economist, or one of our favorite economists besides Paul Krugman and John Maynard Keynes and Karl Marx. It quotes Larry Summers. Oh, I have to get to that part. Okay, here we go. But there's a paradox to thrift. Saving, even if virtuous on an individual level, can cause economic trouble en masse. If ambitious cash stockpiling were to catch on, it could exacerbate secular stagnation and hurt the economy, a term that Harvard University economist Larry Summers repopularized to describe the low-growth, low-inflation state of many advanced economies. When consumers save a big portion of their income, they are not spending as much on dinners out, movie nights, and cars. Businesses respond by investing less in equipment and technology, and productivity stalls. Bosses are unwilling to pay their workers more for the same output, and weak pay gains further restrain spending. They just said that saving is only good for the individual, but it destroys the economy. This is just ridiculous. Oh, those Keynesians, they've really screwed things up for about almost 100 years now. All the different versions of Keynesian economics. The regular Keynesians, the neo-Keynesians. And MMT will be Keynesian economics on steroids. Welcome to dystopia. Wolfgang Felix asks, is there a monster at the end of this book? No, but it's fake unicorns and rainbows. Okay, I'm going to look at listener questions and comments, and then I'm going to wrap the show up, because hopefully I will be able to get that audio podcast out for my Patreon account contributors about some oil market analysis. Carlos says nurses who make $100,000 a year split the rent with roommates. Yeah, that's pretty smart. It depends where they live, though, how high their expenses are. Brian says there's a car bubble. People are turning their cars back to the bank, and some car dealerships are fudging the numbers so people can get a different car. Actually, I was going to cover that on a topic. Yes, there is. The Wall Street Journal even ran an article about that in the last 2 days. The subprime auto loan bubble is getting very frothy, very close to bursting, and the car dealerships are stocked with way too much inventory. They're actually, according to this Wall Street Journal article that just came out, they're actually telling people to not pay their current car loan, and then they can drive a new car off with a new car loan. That's what some of these car dealerships are saying, because they have too much inventory. Anne says, if people stop eating out, then you can save on. I hope you're in a relationship where your partner, your husband or boyfriend or girlfriend or partner is okay with that, because you can't do that if you're dating. Dean says he makes $160,000 a year working on elevators in Southern California. Yeah, Southern California is very expensive now. pretty frugal. Wife is a substitute teacher several times a month. They don't use credit cards, but they're dipping into savings more. Yes, because stagflate and tax and lie. To maintain your same standard of living, your cost of living is going up. So you spend more money to maintain your same standard of living. You're eating into your seed capital. Plus, you're not getting any interest on your savings. That means you're going to have to take risk. Or some type of precious metals, or maybe a little bit of cryptocurrency. Again, I'm not a crypto pumper, Bill Holter. Please stop that. Jim Willie emailed me and called me that too. He said something about that. He said I talk about cryptocurrencies too much. And I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Dirty Bubble Rising, I love your post, says he's a really good poster. Sickening, it's so sickening that so many people think that they can get a bunch of stuff for free from the government and not have any consequences. But this is how most people are nowadays. Most people don't have discipline. Most people don't have integrity. Most people don't have common sense. Most people don't care about their reputation as long as they get what they want. The ends justify the means for many people nowadays. I've been screwed over in so many paid advertising deals and business contracts. I'm very skeptical to trust anyone at this point. Not have any, okay, free, get a bunch of stuff for free from the government and not have any consequences. It's an immutable law of the universe that there is no free lunch. Yes, but that involves common sense and and having respect for discipline and important things in society, and most people just don't care about that. You know, Bernie Sanders is promising them a Green New Deal and free healthcare and free education and unicorns and rainbows. They don't care how that happens. They don't care how the student loan gets wiped, as long as their vote gets them whatever they want. If only life were so simple that you could just hit something at the voting booth instead of writing in for Scooby-Doo. That you could just hit one politician, the wolf or the lion. You could vote for the wolf or the lion, and they would actually fix things and magically fix the infrastructure in this country, which is, in a lot of ways, in the United States, the infrastructure is collapsing. California people are moving to Texas, Anthony. Sorry, that state, next 10 years, not going to be good. I could see in the next 10 years Texas going mostly Democrat. That's how many California people are moving to Texas. And I've met some California people moving to Texas, and there's some real jerks. Oh boy. Like, they made their money in Silicon Valley and San Jose. They got rich. Now they're going to Texas. They'll ruin that state too. Actually, if I was making a little bit more money, I would consider moving to Texas, but it's not a long-term solution. So long-term, there is a lot of Democrats moving there. There's a lot of Democrats moving to Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina. They're escaping the taxes and rules and regulations, all the stuff they voted for, the crazy politicians they elected, they're escaping them. And most of the people who move down there will eventually ruin those states too. They will vote for the same types of politicians, the same types of government spending and taxes, rules, regulations, and those other states that they're moving to will be ruined as well. Okay, one more question before I go. James asks, if you had to buy a gold stock with primarily U.S. mines, what would you get? Great, good work, by the way, in Sandstorm Gold. So this is just my opinion, but today, actually, press release, America's Gold and Silver just poured first gold at the Relief Canyon gold mine in Nevada. So that is an interest. It is speculative. because they have a couple tiny mines producing right now. Eric Sprott just gave them a pretty sizable investment. And that mine is ramping up gold production to commercial production, hopefully in the next month or two. So that is an interesting gold mine in Nevada. It is not very expensive to restart, and that has a lot of potential for cash flow growth. So again, that's not investment advice, just my opinion. It is a speculative stock because it is a tiny junior in Nevada that just poured first gold at the mine, and they're ramping up to commercial production. But it is a fairly low-cost mine, and Sandstorm Gold has a gold stream with them. That's a spec play. For U.S. mines, I'd have to think about that more. I can't think of U.S. mines off the top of my head any more than that. But I was just reading that press. The reason I bring that up is I was reading that press release hours ago when it came out. Because that mine was about 2 months behind schedule, but finally it looks like they've gotten most of the problem solved. Oh yes, Carlos says to please hit the like button. Yeah, I keep forgetting that. We had about 300 people watching, so please hit the like button. And thank you very much to my over 250 Patreon account contributors. It may be 300 in under 6 months now. It's rolling pretty rapidly. My dozen or so monthly PayPal contributors, and people throw me a tip once in a while. I do take the top 6 crypto. No, Ripple is not a top 6 crypto. Okay, well, that's it. I'm going to go work on my audio podcast for my Patreon account contributors about the oil market, and then also lift some weights before bed. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And this article that you see on your screen will be in the information and description section, along with that ridiculous article about how, let me read the title again, how millennials could make the Fed's job harder. Just ridiculous. I can't even believe someone's getting paid like 50 grand or 60 grand to write that garbage. And then the surveys about credit card spending between men and women here in the U.S. If you're interested in that, I'll put some of the surveys in the information and description section.